1971 might seem like a long, long time ago, but sometimes a song is so classic, so powerful, it still resonates 5 decades on.
I started singing, my life is American Pie. I'm shedding to the levee, but the levee was dry. Then good old boys are drinking whiskey and rye, saying this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die.
I could play that for hours. Now, singer-songwriter Don McLean has finally opened up about the true meaning of his #1 hit in a new documentary, The Day the Music Died. And I'm so pleased to say he joins me now. Don, so wonderful to have your company. Thank you so much. Why now?
Well, thank you very much. Very good to be here. I think I was about 28 years old on that clip, and I used to travel the world solo like that and play these enormous outdoor arenas, and without any kind of monitors or anything. I was on fire. I mean, I was just couldn't wait to play that guitar.
I can only imagine, because I will never ever get to do that in my life. Why now to open up about the meanings?
Well, you know, for people who have known me and known the song, and, you know, it's been forever, all of a sudden, there's been this desire to, everybody, wow, you mean it was 50 years ago? And yeah, well, we got to say something about that. So then we start talking about, I met this man named Spencer Proffer, and he's a documentary filmmaker, but he's also an entrepreneur and a guy who gets things done. And he said, I am going to do a documentary movie, a children's book, a Broadway show, and even a bookazine. And it took 2 years to do. And I said, look, I don't know if I've got a tour and everything. I don't know if I'm going to be all that interested in another movie about me or about this song or anything. And he said, oh no, this is going to be a really, really good. He had a vision for this. So then when we finally got the movie like 3/4 over, I said, you know what? I'm going to take the guitar and I'm going to talk about every word in this song, and I'll try to remember what I was thinking and why I wrote it. Because it's 50 years is a long time. Your brain will definitely play tricks on you, or you'll remember stuff that didn't happen. So I started and did it, and we went through it, and it was quite interesting. I came up with a lot of stuff that he then found film footage of me.
We know The Day the Music Died is referring to the tragic plane crash that killed idols Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens and JP Richardson, the Big Bopper. It was 1959. I think it was also a way of expressing the grief that you felt at your own father's death when you were just a teenager. Is that right?
Well, everything started to change after Buddy died. I carried this grief in me. I was almost like mourning. I really was. You know how young people can be.
Yeah.
And Buddy was my guy, you know, and I really mourned him. And the next thing you know, I'm in the middle of seeing my father die. And the next thing you know, I'm playing guitar and I'm singing in front of people, and I've chosen a whole way of life that is a complete anathema to anything my father would have wanted, because he was this pretty stiff, straight-laced Scottish man, but he was a really great guy, and he taught me a lot of good things.
When you went through the lyrics one by one of this song, what were the things that people kept getting wrong? How did people interpret what you'd written incorrectly until now that you've just revealed?
Well, you know, I studied theology for a lot of years in high school and college, and there's a lot of theology in the American Pie album. There's Sister Fatima, You're Finding Your Salvation. There's By the Waters of Babylon. There's Crossroads, which is about the laying on of hands, the way, the truth, the cross, you know, all this, all embedded in that song. And then in American Pie, for example, people would say, well, the 3 men I admire most, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, caught the last train for the coast. They would say, don't you mean so-and-so and so-and-so? said, no, I mean the Holy Trinity. I mean the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. God. Okay, three gods in one. So that's where they would overdo it. And then sometimes I would take something like, the king was Elvis. Well, everybody thinks you say the word the king, and everybody says Elvis, so that's okay. But the king in the song has a thorny crown, and Jesus Christ had a thorny crown.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that the king that could be also an Elvis-type person who is seen as a king. So it's very... I had a whole lot of fun with this because it morphs around, but it still tells a story with each verse, I think, becoming more troubled, more serious, and finally at the end, I realized this when we went over the lyrics. It's a circle. I wanted the music in the beginning, and I asked for the music at the end. And in both cases, I went to the, home, to the sacred store, and which was a house of music on Main Street in New Rochelle. That's what I tell the people in this movie.
It is incredible. Even just hearing you say the lyrics makes me feel quite emotional for some reason, which is strange, but I guess that's the power of music. Did you know that you were onto an absolute winner when you wrote this? Did you know straight away?
I knew nothing. Okay. All I knew was that the record company liked the album. They gave me a lot of money, which I'd never seen before. I was 24 years old. I could help support my mother. That's all I knew. I didn't look ahead to my stardom or anything like that. I just wanted to make a living. And I began making a living. But there were a lot of places for a guy who was young and had a lot of hair and sang and played the guitar and banjo. You could make a living, and that's what I did, and it just kept growing.
How long did it take to write?
The first part came immediately. The chorus came about, a couple of weeks later, and then I was thinking it through how I wanted to do it, and then I wrote the whole thing in about an hour and a half. The rest of it.
Wow. Now, the song's producer, Ed Freeman, says that back in 1971, you were witness to the death of the American dream. I don't know what you believe, but things don't seem that much brighter now in the States. Do you feel like it's history repeating itself in some ways?
Well, the original American dream was really after World War II, and that, was this wonderful idyllic happiness. And yes, of course, that died with all those assassinations in Vietnam and everything. But, American Pie is it's a myth. So there's a whole new country now. It's not a Christian country. It's not a white country. It's a multicultural country. It's a multi-religious country. And so there's a whole brand new, exciting dream that is being lived and created in America as it goes through a rebirth. And this is why nothing stays stagnant, and but the song is always this morality tale. And then because that's what I was shooting for. I didn't want it to be necessarily tied in that time period, but I did want to get the buddies mention in there in the beginning. So it was tricky, but it was a lot of fun.
Do you like the direction that your country's heading in?
I don't know what direction it's heading in because it's added $4 trillion to the national debt in 2 years, and we're going to have explosive inflation and high interest rates and high taxes. We're going to have an explosion in homelessness coming very soon. We have political correctness, which doesn't allow anybody to really say what they really think. You have to be on one side or the other. There's no compromise. At least there was some form of compromise back in 1970. People know how to do that. Now these people are crude and they're crazy, and they, I don't know what's going to happen. I think the country's worse off than it was 50 years ago in that way because we don't have compromise. And I think we've gotten less intellectual, less civilized.
less tolerant as well, I think is something that we all struggle with around the world at the moment. Okay, Don McLean, we thank you so very much for your time. Make sure you watch the documentary. It's absolutely brilliant. You take care of yourself, and thanks again for joining us here on Erin.